Hello and welcome to the last Big Bash show for the 2011-2012 KFC T20 Big Bash League season. It's been an absolutely huge season. Of course, this is a show where you've come to find everything Big Bash related. My name is Shura Taft, and of course, along the way, I had some help and some expert opinion from the man from the age, the cricket writer himself, Jesse Hogan.
Is that still the case? Like, considering how the predictions went for the final, I went the Scorchers, you went the Sixers, so like you're the host, you're also doing the expert comments. I'm just trying to work out what I'm doing now.
I wasn't going to say anything about that, but look, now that you said it, yes, perhaps I should have expert host and you can just have writer for the age, Jesse Hogan. No, but look, it's one of those things. It was a hard one to pick. Both teams came in with some form, and look, it was a huge final. How did you see it?
Oh, that first over by Brett Lee just really changed it, being 2 for 5 and losing with the Scorchers losing their best batsman. That just totally cruelled their chances. Mitch Marsh gave the score a bit of respectability, but with the Sixers, I think it's really a vindication for their sort of depth strategy. I think after the game, I think it was Stuart McGill and one of the other players said that it was virtually the core of the New South Wales team. It really was. So they took a similar approach to the Melbourne Stars, lower profile, but better results. Seemed to be great spirit and, yeah, a great reward for, you know, a really interesting team-first strategy. And
certainly after a huge season with some fantastic games and great performances, to end like that, it was a great game. Unfortunately, probably not as many runs as the Scorchers would have liked to have on the board in front of their home crowd. But you know, someone like Enriquez comes in and does the job, and it's a huge final. And probably Sixers, do you reckon the best team in the tournament now?
Oh, I think when you look at their consistency, they haven't really had too many bad games. Probably the Renegades was the only one where they really looked out of their depth. There's been a couple of pivotal games in there, and the gap between probably their worst just was a lot closer to their best than a lot of other teams. So they didn't really fail as much as other teams, and I think they're a really deserving winner.
So there you have it. After the huge Big Bash League season, the champions were the Sydney Sixers over the Perth Scorchers at the WACA. Well, the question of who's hot and who's not, we've been asking the whole time throughout the Big Bash League season. It's time to ask the very same question after the big final. And Jesse Hogan, who was hot?
Oh, well, you look at what happened there. I think Mitch Marsh deserves a lot of credit for actually getting Perth so close, getting them a semi-respectable score. Coming in the first over at 2 for 5, he did an amazing job to do that. Moses Henriquez did a fantastic job with the bat, I must say. About 2 or 3 overs in, I found myself saying a few negative words about him after he was sort of swinging and missing, but he really embarrassed me. Even at the end, Steve Smith, I know he's really maligned by a lot of people, came in when the Sixers were, had stumbled a bit, got 3 boundaries in the second last over off Remington and really sort of iced the game from there. But I think the biggest, hottest person from, the weekend's game's got to be Brett Lee, getting 2 for 5 in the first over, including getting rid of Herschel Gibbs' first ball, their most crucial batsman of the Scorchers. That was the really big moment of the final, courtesy of Brett Lee.
I think one of the big things to notice as well, they showed on the pitch map, they showed his first spell and his second spell, and it was like he was landing in the exact same area. So obviously his control was still there for a bloke who's, over 30 years of age and probably too old now for, some would say, for Australian duties.
Well, it's sort of one thing, like for a while, he's had a great career. I wasn't a huge rap for him as a test player, certainly towards the end. But I think since he's come back from his injury problems, these last 2 or 3 years in limited overs cricket have been absolutely sensational. And even though he's 35, I think he fully deserves his spot in both Australian limited overs teams.
Indeed, indeed. And what about the people who didn't quite perform? Who was not hot from the weekend?
I mean, you've got to look at, it's unfortunate, you look at the top 3 players of the tournament, you've got David Hussey, Chris Gale and Herschel Gibbs, and funnily enough, they all ended their season with golden ducks. Most recently, Herschel Gibbs on Saturday night, and so once he goes, they've relied so crucially not just on the number of runs he scores, but also the speed at which he scores them. So to get that wicket really was amazing. You can't be too critical of Herschel Gibbs considering how he sort of carried them. I think probably one bowler that really hurt Scorchers on the other night was Nathan Remington. He's got a reputation as a limited overs expert, but I think it was none for 36 off 3 overs, and he bowled that second last over to Smith, that Smith got him away for 3 boundaries, and up until that point they'd somehow got themselves back into the game. So I think he's probably the one who's going to come out of it really disappointed.
It's unfortunate for him as well, because obviously you're bowling, if you're a batsman as well, like look at Henriquez, whose overs probably weren't that good when he was bowling, but he comes out and he smashes the ball around and has a great game. So there you go. They were the hot and not people from the weekend's games, and thanks for your opinion on that one, Jesse. All right, it's time for our last tweets of the week. This is the chance for you guys at home to ask any questions to our expert, Jesse Hogan, and we've got 2 good ones to finish off with Jesse. The first is from @Lloyd H. Green, who says, who is your surprise of the year? Could be person, could be team, what is it?
My surprise for the year would be old spinners. You know, I could see why they picked Shane Warne, sort of like the marketing reason. I was sort of a bit sceptical about whether he'd sort of have it, and I was really surprised to see the signings of Stuart MacGill and Brad Hogg coming back. And it's funny when you compare the three; all three totally justified their position. Warne probably, no, he didn't spin the ball anywhere near as much as he used to, but was very smart with where he landed the ball, very economical. But the other two spinners moved the ball as much as I can remember doing it. Stuart MacGill probably wasn't as economical as the other two, but got the ball to turn a lot, got some really crucial wickets, probably most notably Travis Bird in the semi-final. And then Brad Hogg, he's had both the wicket taking and the economy rate. He was just really superb. And even in the final, I think he got 1 for 29 off 4, which would be probably close to his worst figures for the year. And even in a T20 match, they're actually still pretty respectable figures. So he's really been absolutely superb. And even though he's 40 plus, I still think it was the right call to actually bring him out back for the Australian T20 side for the two 2020s and most probably the World 2020 later this year.
And would you say of those three players, they probably celebrated wickets more than anyone else in the whole league? The oldest blokes, they loved getting wickets. MacGill especially, he'd celebrate like it was going out of fashion.
That's just that's probably the greatest celebration I can sort of see, just sort of charging past teammates and that sort of thing. He was an angry little man in the past, and I think that's probably the only window that we see now into, he's that old sort of MacGill aggression.
Very good. All right, our second tweet for the week is from @Stephen Fendi, who says, "What is the best moment of the Big Bash?" Big question.
I actually think of two moments in, there was just a preliminary game between the Sydney Sixers and the Melbourne Stars. It was towards the start of the tournament. I actually think this is probably the pivotal match in the Sydney Sixers campaign. They won it by 2 runs, and it was actually 2 bits of fielding. The first one was when Cameron White slogged the ball down to long off, and Brett Lee just sort of ran in, sprawled forward, and somehow got his right hand under the ball and took an amazing catch. And I think I saw there was a highlight of a montage of some catches. I think it was on Inside Cricket a few weeks ago, and that was in there, and I could not believe that they didn't say clearly that was the best catch of the Big Bash, because in my mind it clearly was amazing. But the other one, it wasn't even a catch, it was a boundary, it was an almost certain 6 that Luke Wright was going to hit. Dwayne Bravo, who's done some amazing fielding in previous seasons, has come back and virtually while bending his back, gone over the boundary, grabbed it like this, and in one motion thrown it back. And so while there wasn't even a catch that came of it, it actually saved, I think, 4 runs. And it was an incredible bit of athleticism. When you consider the Sixers won by 2 runs, I think it totally reinforced what an amazing piece of fielding it was.
Well, certainly some amazing acts the whole time throughout the Big Bash League season. I think people will agree. I think it was something like almost 300 sixes hit. There was some incredible balls, some incredible fielding. So an amazing tournament. Got to say thank you to all you guys who've tweeted in from home. Hopefully Jesse's answered your questions, and if we're back next year, of course, we'll keep doing that. Jump on Twitter if you need to. Up next, we're going to wrap this all up. Well, that's it for the Big Bash show for this year. We've got to say a huge thank you to our resident expert, Jesse. Thank you for coming in and giving all your opinions.
Thank you, and thanks for your expert tips as well.
No problems at all. And of course, you guys at home, everyone who's watched the show, who's tweeted in and commented on it, we've absolutely loved it. Thank you very much for your support. Thank you for watching. And of course, we'll hopefully be back next year for an even bigger and better season. And before it starts, Jesse, who's your tip for next year's championship?
Don't even bother. No, what's your tip? That's the more important thing.
I think surely next year the Melbourne teams have to at least come up and do something.
Yep.
They've got to start playing some better cricket. Anyway, we'll see what happens. Of course, the World T20 Championships coming up soon. That's going to be great. Anyway, as I said, thank you very much for watching the show, and we'll see you next time.
The champions for the BBL 01, the Sydney Sixers.